The Office was on for 9 seasons consisting of 201 complete episodes, and like any major comedy hit, the show had its fair share of walk-on characters. Often these were played by big-name celebrities, and when it happened, they usually only stuck around for a single episode. Because it was on for so long, The Office racked up quite a few of these characters, and even though they were only around for one episode, many of them are hilarious and unforgettable. Of course, the opposite is also true, and there are tons most viewers have forgotten. Not every one-off character is going to be memorable, and for the ones who were, there are hordes of fans who quote their lines whenever they recall the series. It takes a lot to make a single appearance last in someone's memory, and among the many that were on The Office, not every one of them was especially amazing. For these 10 who were, it's likely viewers recall just about everything they said and did while they were on the show. They may have only been around for a short appearance, but these 10 single-episode characters were the best to show up on The Office. I am Kirsten from What Culture, and these are 10 of the best characters to only appear in one episode of The Office. Number 10, Ed Truck. In The Carpets, we are introduced to Michael's former boss, Ed Truck. Michael was feeling low due to the fact that his employees didn't see him as a friend, no matter what he tried. So he went to his former boss and mentor for some advice. When Ed tells him that because he's their boss, they won't ever see him as a friend, Michael refuses to accept it. Ed's advice was to let your workers be your workers, your family be your family, and your friends be your friends. But Michael wasn't having any of it. The episode reveals a lot about why Michael acts the way he does when more of his past while working with Ed is revealed. Michael described Ed as the opposite of fun, and he noticed that when he walked by his co-workers, they pretended to be busy working. Michael wanted to be the exact opposite, which is why he has his nose in everyone's business, trying to become their friends while maintaining minimal distance as their boss. Ed didn't return for another episode, but he was brought up in Season 3 episode Grief Counseling when Creed reveals that he died after being decapitated under a truck. Number 9, Bill. In Email Surveillance, Michael attends his improv comedy class, and after getting off to a bad start with a bunch of others, he opts to shoot in a scene. He pairs off with Bill, as played by the inimitable Ken Jeong. Bill is barely in the scene at all, but when you're dealing with a comic presence like Jeong, he doesn't need to say or do very much to steal a scene. Both he and Michael are working on a scene through the class, but after Michael whispers something in his ear, he raises his hands and backs off. The instructor asks Bill what Michael said to him, and he lets him know that Michael told him that he couldn't show it to him, but he had a gun. With that, the class comes to a close, and everyone was frustrated with Michael's murderous antics. As everyone's walking out, Michael hears the group talking about going to Bernie's Tavern, so Michael insinuates that he will join them. But Bill lets him know that, oh, we're not going as a group, it's just a private friend who happens to know all of us from different ways is throwing a private birthday thing. Clever boy, Bill. Number 8, Robert Dunder. If you ever wondered about the namesake of the company everyone was working for during the first few seasons, half of the question is answered in Season 4's Dunder Mifflin Infinity. In the episode, Robert Dunder, one of the co-founders, comes into the office. When Ryan attempts to introduce a new way of working by introducing Dunder Mifflin Infinity, which is a proposal meant to introduce new technology into the company's operations, Michael becomes worried and feels threatened. He worries that the old guard will be phased out, and seeing as that's including him, he turns to one of the founders for help. He brings Robert Dunder into the office to speak to the employees, but things don't go exactly as he had hoped. At this point in his life, Mr. Dunder is 87 years old, and apparently more than a little bit senile. Standing in front of the group, he begins telling a story which only serves to bore everyone, but it's clear that his memory isn't as good as it was in his youth. Michael quickly ushers him out of the door, and Pam offers to take him home after he stands outside the conference room without anywhere to go. Aw, poor Mr. Dunder. Number 7, Captain Jack. When Michael took the team out on a booze cruise, he did so aboard a vessel captained by one Captain Jack, as played by Rob Riggle. Almost immediately, the two men have problems with one another, with the captain being the one who had more issues with Michael rather than the other way around. Captain Jack was in the United States Navy during the Gulf War, and he had a few close calls. There isn't much more known to his backstory other than the fact that he proposed to his first wife the day that he returned from war, though they later divorced. Michael and Jack didn't get along throughout the booze cruise, mostly due to Michael's challenging of Jack's authority. When Jack is getting it on with Meredith, their rendezvous was interrupted when he heard Michael outside trying to convince the passengers the boat was sinking, and that Jack abandoned them to their fate. After Jack came out to find everyone in a panic, he put Michael in the brig, which is basically just zip tying him and then sending him to the back of the ship. But it was after a passenger had jumped through a window and into the water. Number 6. Christian. Tim Meadows joined the cast of The Office for The Client when he played Christian, a representative of Lackawanna County and potential client of Dunder Mifflin. He shows up in the episode at Chili's, which is the setting of a major meeting attended by Michael and Jan. Christian is a relatively serious businessman, but the meeting goes off the rails from the start thanks to Michael's insistence of interrupting everything Jan says. As Jan gets more and more annoyed by this, Michael manages to entertain Christian, loosening him up for the pitch. Tim Meadows has a great deal of chemistry playing opposite Steve Carell, which helps to alleviate the tension of the situation while simultaneously ramping it up for Jan. It continues like this for a while as Christian continues to explain that budget cuts are the name of the game. In many ways, Christian ends up being something of an in-between for Jan and Michael, when talk gets serious regarding Jan's divorce. Ultimately, it all works out, and they get the contract for Dunder Mifflin, despite the fact that Jan and Michael were almost up against one another in making it all happen. Number 5. Brenda Matlow. In many ways, a character who only shows up once in The Office becomes memorable in the way that they get the main characters to play off their presence. Brenda Matlow is one such character, and her very presence in Booze Cruise made Michael act crazier than usual. In the episode, the team from Dunder Mifflin go on a booze cruise as a so-called leadership training exercise, and Brenda comes along for the ride. She's apparently there to see how Michael's cruise idea works for other branches in the company, but he's pretty sure that she was sent by Jan to spy on him. Ostensibly, this is done to see if his cruise idea was truly a legitimate business expense, so seeing Brenda as a spy makes Michael act in a predictable way. As people are having fun and enjoying themselves, he constantly interrupts everything to inject a lesson on business leadership. Brenda only appeared in one episode, but her character was referenced in several that followed. In The Carpet, Jim left her a voicemail asking her out, while in Take Your Daughter to Work Day, Jim declines a dinner invitation for Abby, and it is speculated that he was on a date with Brenda. Number 4. Ben Franklin. In Ben Franklin, Dwight and Jim are tasked by Michael to hire a stripper for Bob Vance's bachelor party and Phyllis Lapin's bachelorette party. This only came up when it was determined that the best way to avoid a sexual harassment claim was to provide a stripper for the men as well as the women. Dwight quickly and easily secures a stripper for Bob's party, but Jim decides to go on another route, and instead he hires a costumed historical lecturer, who came in the form of Benjamin Franklin. Mr. Franklin arrives at the women's party, whereupon Michael asks if he's wearing a thong since he believes that he's a stripper. Meanwhile, the female stripper arrived dressed as an office secretary and gives Michael half of a lap dance, which was ended prematurely when he remembered that he had a girlfriend. Eventually, Michael consults with the stripper about the lap dance, wanting to know if he should tell Jan, and she gives him some good advice. The Ben Franklin stripper was far less helpful, and he turned out to be a strange creep who didn't know as much about Ben Franklin as he probably should have. Number 3. Paris. In the return, Dwight's job hunt intensifies with his 3-volume resume, though he takes a job at Staples to earn some money while he continues to look elsewhere for a more stable, permanent position. Dwight quickly alienates his co-worker, Paris, who has never heard of Dunder Mifflin. If you've seen Yvette Nicole Brown in Community, Mum, or any other dozens of series that she's popped up on over the years, you know that she can play a great secondary character, and her time on The Office is no exception. As you might expect, she doesn't exactly take a shine to Dwight, which isn't surprising, seeing as he's not much of a people person. In an interview with the documentary crew, Paris speaks her mind as her first impression of Dwight, saying, "I don't like him, his giant head or his beady little eyes. That's all I've got to say on the matter." It's no surprise given the way that he spoke to her right before that scene, but she didn't have to put up with Dwight for long. Michael ends up coming into Staples to woo Dwight back into the office, so he left his retail job behind to rejoin the crew at Dunder Mifflin. Number 2. Robert Blatt, aka Broccoli Rob. Broccoli Rob is a somewhat unique character on this list due to the fact that he appeared in a single episode in Season 9, but was mentioned numerous times through Seasons 5 to 8 before he ever showed his face. He was first brought up in Season 5 when Andy listed him as a member of his a cappella group, whom he had invited to the wedding. He's mentioned the following season when it's suggested that Broccoli Rob may have been the one to suggest Michael spread a rumour that Andy was gay. In Season 7, Broccoli Rob is mentioned as having performed in a Vermont State Milk Lobby song titled Kelsey Yum. The next season, Broccoli Rob shoots Andy a text saying only boo, which frightened him, and he finally makes an appearance in Season 9's Here Comes Treble, as played by Stephen Colbert. Broccoli Rob appears via webcam when Andy is about to sing his signature song. Rob completely upstages Andy, which leads to an argument between the two, leading to Erin simply turning him off. It was a brief appearance, but the years of minimal foreshadowing and mentions made it all come round full circle in a great and satisfying appearance by Colbert. Number 1. The Finger Lakes Guy. Typically, when a character shows up for only one episode, they stick around for some serious screen time, or they won't make much of an impact, but that's not always the case. Sometimes a minute or two is all it takes to create a great character, if you have the right actor for the job. In Search Committee, a hiring committee comes together to interview applicants to become the new regional manager at Dunder Mifflin Sabre in Scranton. There are several applicants who only have a short time on screen, but they are played by some serious talent, including James Spader, Craig Robinson, Ray Romano, Catherine Tate, and many more. One applicant made an impact, and he was played by Jim Carrey. Though his character was never given a name, he's simply referred to as the Finger Lakes Guy, due to his constant need to talk about the Finger Lakes. During his interview, he repeatedly asked if he could take some time to go off to the Finger Lakes, and there doesn't appear to be anything else he's interested in. When he talks about his application for the job, he mentions that his family is in the Finger Lakes, and he's supposed to be in the Finger Lakes. He told them that he was going for a hike, and he just went in for the interview, but he has to get back to the Finger Lakes. People disappear in the Finger Lakes. And there you are, the 10 best characters only in one episode of The Office. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, and if there are any characters that you loved that were just in one episode of The Office, please let us know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button as well as the little notification bell to be notified of any new videos coming your way. But for now, I have been Kirsten Rhea from What Culture, and oh, would you look at the time? Looks like I've got to get to the Finger Lakes.